I didn't expect a thank you. But I also didn't expect to be called a worthless loser by the very person whose life I was holding together. When my sister Emily showed up at my apartment with nothing but a suitcase and a smile, I didn't hesitate. She was fresh out of high school, newly accepted into a well-known university in the city, and full of dreams she couldn't afford to chase alone. Our parents had helped as much as they could, but they didn't have the means. So I stepped in. At the time, I was juggling 2 jobs, waitressing during the day and stocking shelves overnight, barely making enough to keep up with rent, student loans, and groceries. But Emily was my little sister. She was smart, driven, and genuinely excited about her future. So when she asked if she could live with me during school, just for a year, she'd said, I told her yes without hesitation. No rent, no bills. I even offered to help cover what her scholarships didn't. Books, supplies, meal plans, whatever she needed. At first, it felt good, like I was doing something meaningful. I told myself I was giving her the kind of start I wish someone had given me. Family supports family, right? The first few weeks were smooth enough. She was polite, grateful, even helpful around the apartment. She made us dinner once, told me about her professors, her classmates, her lectures. I liked hearing about it. I liked the idea that she might go farther than I had, that maybe I was helping her build something better. But slowly that gratitude faded. She stopped cleaning up after herself, started coming home later and later. Her bedroom became a disaster zone, and every morning the kitchen sink was filled with dishes I didn't use. I didn't complain. I told myself it was just her adjusting. But it started to wear on me. She began asking for more money. Small things at first. My lab fees weren't covered. I need a new textbook. Can you spot me for groceries this week? I kept saying yes, dipping into what little I had saved. I even picked up extra shifts to make up for it. I never said anything. I didn't want to be the reason she failed. I figured it was temporary. But then came the clothes. The online orders started showing up every other day. New jackets, trendy boots, a different purse each week. I was still wearing the same work sneakers I'd been using for over a year, holes in the soles and all. But Emily? Emily was suddenly dressing like an influencer. I asked her once, lightly, where all the new stuff was coming from. She shrugged. Everyone at school dresses like this. I have to look the part. I bit my tongue. I didn't ask again. Then I started seeing her social media posts. Fancy restaurants, expensive concerts, weekend getaways. It was like watching someone live a double life. One minute she was asking me for help buying groceries. The next, she was posting boomerangs of herself toasting champagne in a rooftop bar. I kept quiet. Always quiet. Because every time I tried to bring it up, I was met with the same response. You don't get it, Lauren. This is what it takes to succeed these days. Image matters. And when I told our parents I was getting tired, financially, emotionally, they brushed it off. It's just a phase, Mom said. She's young. She'll grow out of it. But I wasn't growing out of anything. I was growing resentful. And then came the reunion. It was my mother's idea. Just a casual backyard gathering. Cousins, aunts, uncles, the usual chaos. Emily showed up late, of course, dressed like she was heading to a magazine cover shoot, not a family BBQ. She smiled, hugged everyone, and immediately launched into stories about her exciting life at university. No mention of me. No mention of how she got there. Just glamour, ambition, and how people like me wouldn't understand the grind she was facing. And then, clear as day, she said it. I could never live like Lauren. No offense, but working 2 jobs and still being broke? That's not a lifestyle. That's just being a loser. She laughed. Others laughed too, awkwardly. My mom gave me a pitying glance. I sat there, silent, frozen in place. She had no idea I was the reason she could even afford to insult me. I didn't say a word, but a month later I kicked her out. And when I told the family why, the real story started unraveling. That night after the reunion, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, her words replaying over and over in my mind. That's just being a loser. She said it like it was a joke, like my sacrifices were some kind of punchline. No one defended me. No one even looked shocked. A few people laughed. My own mother changed the subject like it hadn't happened. And Emily? She didn't even notice. Or maybe she did, and just didn't care. I didn't confront her. I didn't storm out. I didn't make a scene. But inside, something snapped. For the first time, I realized she saw me exactly the way I feared she might. Not as the person who made her life possible, but as someone beneath her. Disposable. Unimportant. All I'd ever done was help her. And now, all she saw was someone to mock. I got out of bed that night and sat in the kitchen, staring at the budget spreadsheet I'd been updating for years. Rent, utilities, groceries, transportation, tuition fees, textbooks, laptop repairs, phone bills. All in my name. All on my card. I started adding it up, line by line. What I had spent on Emily in the last year was almost enough for a down payment on a small home, or a used car, or my own continuing education. Instead, I had nothing. No savings, no vacations, just exhaustion, resentment, and a roommate who called me a loser to my face. She hadn't come home after the reunion. I guess she was staying with friends. She didn't even text to say where she was. Not that I expected her to. That's how it always went. Emily floated from favor to favor, confident the people around her would keep catching her. And I always had. But not anymore. I didn't say anything right away. That would have been too easy. Too expected. I needed time. I needed a plan. So I kept playing the role. The quiet, dependable sister in the background. When Emily finally came home 2 days later, she acted like nothing had happened. No apology. Not even a sideways glance. Just flopped on the couch with her phone and a smoothie, kicked off her shoes and asked if I'd paid the electric bill yet. I said yes. I always did. The next few weeks passed like a slow burn. Emily kept up her routine. Classes, parties, online shopping. Every now and then, she'd toss out a comment about how tired she was, how hard school was, how some people have it so easy because they don't have the pressure of success. That was her way of shading me, always with a smile. She started inviting friends over more often. Loud, careless people who left their trash in my living room and used my shampoo like it was a party favor. I didn't complain. I let it pile up, let her feel safe. But every night when she went to sleep, I was up late, updating the same document. Expenses, deadlines, exit plan. I contacted my landlord, quietly checked the lease. I owned the apartment. She was never on it. I'd let her stay as a favor. No rent, no contribution, no contract. She was staying here because I let her, and I was done letting her. I started saying no to small things. It began with little rejections. Sorry, can't cover your lunch this week. Or, you'll have to get your own laundry detergent. She pouted, called me stingy, joked to her friends that I was finally acting my income. But I stayed calm, quiet, controlled. She didn't notice what was coming. She never did. My parents didn't notice either. They kept calling, asking if Emily needed anything, never once asking if I did. Never checking how I was managing the load. They had long since assumed I was the safety net, a role I never agreed to, but one I'd been shoved into nonetheless. I started setting deadlines, quiet ones. I gave myself a date, the end of the month. 30 days to phase her out. 30 days to gather the receipts, the screenshots, the proof. Not because I needed it for her, but because I needed it for the family. For when the fallout came. Because I knew Emily wouldn't take it quietly. She'd twist it. She'd spin the story like she always did. And I wanted to be ready. The final straw came when she left a passive-aggressive note on the fridge, written in pink glitter pen, no less. It read, "Hey sis, we're out of almond milk again. Not sure what your contribution is around here anymore." I stared at it for a long time. That was the moment I knew. There was no saving this, no turning it around, no final conversation that would make her understand. Some lessons you don't teach with words, some lessons you teach by walking away. The first day of the final week started like any other. Emily was still asleep by the time I left for work. I passed her bedroom, door half open, clothes everywhere, music still faintly playing from a speaker on the floor, and I just shook my head. She didn't have class that day. She said she needed a mental reset after what she called a brutal week. I remembered her brutal week. It included 3 brunches, 1 beach trip, and a late-night study session that involved margaritas and a hookah bar. I never said anything anymore. There was no point. But that morning, I dropped off a letter with the building manager. A formal notice. Emily had exactly 7 days to move out. She wasn't on the lease, and I had confirmed every legal step I needed to take. I didn't want drama. I wanted clarity, boundaries, a clean exit from a situation that had drained me to the bone. That night, I made dinner. Spaghetti, garlic bread. I even lit a candle. It felt symbolic somehow, like the calm before a storm. Emily waltzed in around 9 p.m., dropping her bag on the floor and kicking off her boots like always. "Smells good," she said, peeking over my shoulder. "Did you make enough for 2?" I nodded. "Grab a plate." We sat at the table like strangers. She scrolled through her phone the whole time, giggling at something one of her friends posted. Halfway through the meal, I cleared my throat. "Hey, Em, we need to talk." She looked up briefly, chewing. That's never a good sign. I kept my voice steady. "I've given notice to the building. You need to move out by the end of the week." She blinked, then laughed. "What? Are you serious?" "Completely," I said. "You've had a year here, rent-free. I've paid for your education, your expenses, your lifestyle. It's time for you to stand on your own feet." Her face changed fast, from confusion to amusement to outright offense. "Wait, hold on. You're kicking me out?" "I'm asking you to grow up," I replied. "It's not personal, it's overdue." Emily pushed her chair back. "Wow. Just wow. You're unbelievable, Lauren. I knew you were uptight, but this is next level petty." I said nothing, just continued eating. She stood up. "You can't do this. I'm in school. I don't have anywhere else to go." "You have friends," I said calmly. "You have parents who apparently think you're the golden child. Ask them." She scoffed. "You're just jealous. That's what this is. You're bitter because I'm making something of myself and you're stuck here." I met her gaze. "If by making something of yourself, you mean coasting on someone else's paycheck and calling it ambition, then sure." Her jaw dropped. She'd never heard me speak like that before. I'd always been the quiet one, the pushover, the invisible support beam in her life. Now the beam was cracking, and she didn't like it. "You've changed," she said, narrowing her eyes. "No," I replied, pushing my plate away. "I've just stopped pretending this arrangement works." She stormed off, slamming her door behind her. And for once, I didn't flinch. The next few days were a passive-aggressive war zone. She barely spoke to me, except for snide comments muttered under her breath. She left her messes everywhere, hoping I'd snap. But I didn't. I just let them pile up. I'd already made my peace. By the 3rd day, she started panicking. I caught her whispering on the phone late at night, asking friends if they had a couch she could crash on. I overheard her say, "She's serious this time." I think she's really doing it. Damn right I was. Then came the turning point. On the 4th day, she approached me in the kitchen, arms crossed, tone dramatically softer. "Hey, can we talk?" I looked up, expression neutral. "Sure. I've been thinking, and maybe we got off on the wrong foot. I didn't mean to be disrespectful. It's just been a stressful semester. You know how it is." There it was. The guilt trip, the manipulation, wrapped in faux humility. "I understand," I said. nodding slowly. And I still expect you to leave by Friday. She flinched like I'd slapped her. Seriously? Dead serious. Her jaw tightened. You'll regret this? You're throwing away family. I looked her right in the eyes. Number, I'm reclaiming my peace. And with that, I walked away. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't lose control. I didn't have to. Because Emily had just started to realize something no one in our family had ever taught her. Actions have consequences. And this time, she was going to feel them. By Friday morning, Emily still hadn't packed a single box. She was acting like if she ignored the deadline long enough, it would just disappear. I woke up to the smell of her brewing coffee and the sound of her singing along to some pop song in the kitchen like it was any other day. The audacity would have shocked me if I hadn't already accepted who she really was. I didn't say anything. I just walked past her, grabbed my keys, and headed to work. I'd already spoken to the landlord and arranged for the locks to be changed that evening. I gave her more time than most people ever would. She had no lease, no right to be here. And I had every piece of paper I needed to protect myself. But still, I braced for chaos, and I didn't have to wait long. The first call came around noon. My mom. Of course. Lauren, what is going on? I just got off the phone with Emily. She's in tears. I took a deep breath and kept my voice level. She's being asked to leave. That's it. My mother gasped like I'd confessed to a crime. You're kicking your sister out of your home? She's still in school. She's 22, Mom. She's an adult. She's had a free ride for over a year. Rent-free, bill-free. I've paid for her textbooks, her groceries, even her Netflix. That's what family does, she snapped. We help each other. I've been helping, I said, my voice rising despite myself. I've only been helping. And what have I gotten in return? Insults? Entitlement? Public humiliation? At what point do I get to have a life too? There was a long pause. Then she said, You're overreacting. She didn't mean what she said at the reunion. She meant every word. She's your sister. I know. I hung up before I could say something I'd regret. An hour later, it was Dad. His approach was different. More guilt, less anger. Lord, don't you think this is all a bit harsh? She's just a kid. She's not a kid, I said firmly. And I'm not her parent. I've sacrificed years of my life for her. I was working 2 jobs so she could go out for bottomless mimosas. And what did she call me? A worthless loser. In front of the entire family. He sighed. She's under pressure. You know how it is with school and social media and... I cut him off. No, Dad. I don't know. Because I never got a break. I didn't get to live off someone else while figuring out who I was. I've been grinding since I was 18, and no one ever gave me what I gave her. I'm just asking you to reconsider. Well, I'm not going to. That night, I came home to exactly what I expected. Emily sitting on the couch with tears in her eyes and a dramatic pout. Her suitcase sat by the door untouched. The apartment was still a mess. She hadn't packed anything. She looked up when I entered. So, this is really happening? It was always happening. You just didn't believe me. Her eyes narrowed. I didn't think you'd actually go through with it. That's the problem, I said quietly. You never think people will stop saving you. She stood, arms crossed. Where am I supposed to go? I don't know, I said truthfully. But that's not my responsibility anymore. She flinched like I'd slapped her. You're heartless. No, I replied, my voice calm. I'm just tired. She stared at me, waiting for me to break, to back down, to crack like I always had when she threw a fit. But I didn't. I walked past her and into my room. I didn't even look back. An hour later, I heard her on the phone with our mother, sobbing dramatically. She's throwing me out, Mom. I don't have anywhere to go. I rolled my eyes and turned up the volume on my music. I was done being the villain in a story where I'd only ever played the rescuer. The next morning, she was gone. The apartment was still a mess, but she was out. No note, no apology, just a hollow silence and an empty bedroom. I stood in the doorway and exhaled. For the first time in over a year, the space felt like mine again. I thought it would feel lonely, but it didn't. It felt like freedom. And I had a feeling that the real storm was just beginning. It didn't take long for Emily to start spinning the story. By the end of the weekend, her social media was flooded with cryptic posts. Stuff like, "Some people show their true colors when you need them the most." Betrayed by the one person I thought I could count on. Family means nothing to some people. Of course, she didn't mention that she'd been living rent-free for over a year, or that she'd called me a worthless loser in front of our entire extended family. No, according to her, I'd heartlessly thrown her into the street without warning. And people bought it. Within days, I started getting messages from family I hadn't heard from in years. "Lauren, is it true you kicked your sister out? She's going through so much. Couldn't you have waited until the semester ended?" Whatever happened to supporting family? I ignored most of them, but the one that finally broke my silence came from our cousin Michelle, someone I had actually been close with once. "You're being cruel," she wrote. "She's your baby sister. She needed you." I snapped. Not in the way Emily expected, though. Not with drama or yelling or public posts. No, I did it the way I'd always done everything. Quietly, methodically, and with receipts. I wrote one message. Just one. And I sent it to every person who had messaged me, including Michelle. In the last 14 months, I've paid for Emily's rent, tuition gap, books, groceries, utilities, rideshare costs, phone bill, clothes, and personal expenses. She has never contributed a dime. I've worked 2 jobs to support her while she took weekend trips, posted photos at concerts, and laughed at my sacrifices. At a family reunion last month, she called me a worthless loser in front of 20 people. So, yes, I asked her to leave, and I'd do it again. The silence that followed was better than any apology. Michelle replied first. "I had no idea. I'm so sorry." Then came a few others. She told us a very different version. "You've done more than anyone ever should." That's not okay, what she said to you. Even my mother went quiet for a few days, which in itself was a miracle. But Emily? She didn't back down. When sympathy dried up online, she tried something new. A GoFundMe page. The title was, "Help Me Stay in School." The description? Full of half-truths. After being blindsided by my only support system, I'm now at risk of losing everything I've worked for. I just need help covering a few basic living expenses so I can stay enrolled. It was disgusting. I watched her try to weaponize victimhood the way she always had. Not with facts, but with emotion. She knew how to twist the truth just enough to sound believable. She knew how to make people feel sorry for her. But this time it didn't work. She didn't raise much. A few $100s, maybe. Not nearly enough to cover her rent or tuition. People asked too many questions. Some even reached out to me. And I answered them all, with patience, with facts, and with proof. The cracks in her story began to show. One of her former friends even sent me screenshots. Emily complaining about having to live with our parents again, saying their house was gross, that they didn't cook real food, and that she deserved better. Deserved. That word again. I couldn't help but laugh. It was like watching a toddler throw a tantrum because the world had stopped handing them candy. And as for my parents, they started calling again. Not to apologize, not to understand, but to beg. "She maxed out our credit card," my dad said one night. "Trying to pay for rent and books and God knows what else." "She's still our daughter," my mom added. "She's struggling. Can't you just help her get back on her feet?" I took a long breath before I answered. "Number I've already helped, and you enabled her while I was drowning. So now you get to clean up the mess you both ignored." "But she's not ready," my mom whispered. "And whose fault is that?" There was no response. They'd finally run out of excuses. That night, I sat on my balcony and watched the city lights flicker across the skyline. For the first time in years, I felt a strange, beautiful stillness. No more late night requests, no more guilt, no more walking on eggshells in my own home. Emily's world was collapsing. But mine? Mine was finally beginning. Weeks passed. Emily's GoFundMe quietly disappeared after the donations dried up and the questions got louder. I heard through the grapevine that she moved back in with our parents, sulking in her childhood bedroom like the queen exiled from her castle. She refused to get a part-time job, said it was beneath her, claimed it would distract her from her bigger goals. But her lifestyle didn't match her story anymore. The branded clothes stopped appearing. No more rooftop brunches, no more impromptu beach getaways. Her social media shifted from glam to vague sadness, filtered selfies with captions like, "Some people will never understand loyalty." She wasn't fooling anyone. And still, I said nothing. I didn't defend myself. I didn't retaliate. I didn't waste time arguing with people who'd already shown me where their loyalties lay. Because I had learned something through all of this. The loudest people are often the ones most afraid of silence. Emily couldn't stand silence. She needed noise, attention, drama. Without it, she was just another 20-something living off her parents, bitter that the world wasn't handing her everything she thought she deserved. Meanwhile, I was rebuilding. For the first time in years, I had control over my finances. I didn't have to split my income between two lives. I bought myself a new laptop. I signed up for an online course I'd been eyeing for months. I even started looking at nicer apartments, places where the second bedroom wouldn't be taken by someone who saw me as an ATM with a face. But the biggest change? I finally had room to breathe. One afternoon, my mom called again. I debated ignoring it, but something told me to pick up. "Hi, Lauren," she said softly. "How are you?" I could hear it in her voice, the weariness, the edge of something that almost sounded like regret. "I'm okay," I replied. "Working, saving, sleeping for once." There was a pause. Then she said, "Emily's struggling." I didn't say anything. "She dropped 2 of her classes," Mom continued. "She says she can't focus. She says everything feels hard without the support she used to have." I almost laughed, but stopped myself. Because for the first time, I didn't feel anger. I felt pity. "She didn't lose support," I said. "She lost access." "That's not the same. It is when you've never had to earn anything." My mother sighed. "I think she's learning. Slowly. I just hope it's not too late." That was the thing. Sometimes the lesson comes too late, and sometimes it doesn't come at all. "I hope so too," I said. "But either way, I'm done being her cushion." There was another long pause. Then, quietly, "I understand." It was the closest thing to an apology I was going to get, and surprisingly, it was enough. Later that week, I ran into one of Emily's old college friends at the grocery store. She recognized me instantly, but her tone was different, respectful, even careful. "I heard what happened," she said. "Emily told us one version, but it didn't add up. A few of us figured it out." "Figured what out?" She always acted like she was the one doing everything on her own, but it was obvious she wasn't. Designer clothes, Ubers everywhere, no job. Then after she moved out, she started complaining nonstop. She blamed you. The school, even the weather. Never herself. I nodded slowly. "That sounds about right." "She said you betrayed her, but honestly, it sounded like you just got tired of being used." I smiled. "Exactly." We said goodbye, and I left with a strange sense of closure, because in that moment I realized the truth didn't need to be shouted. It just needed to be lived, and I was living it. The final piece of the puzzle came a month later when I received an envelope in the mail. No return address, but I recognized the handwriting instantly. It was from Emily. Inside was a single page. No apology. Just a note that said, "I thought I could do this on my own. I was wrong. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I wanted you to know that I see it now. All of it. No excuses, no manipulation, just acknowledgement. I folded the letter and put it away in a drawer. I didn't reach out. I didn't reply. Because forgiveness isn't always about reconnecting. Sometimes it's about releasing the weight you've carried for far too long. I wasn't bitter anymore. I wasn't angry. I was free. And for the first time, I knew something with absolute certainty. I had done the right thing.